We all do it. We want something online, but to get it, we have to allow some access to personal information. We think for a second and click, OK. Now imagine you've walked miles to find safety, and you find a camp where it's safe and there's food. But to enter, you need to give an ID, or a fingerprint, or an eye or palm scan. The intentions are good. Aid groups at the camp want to be able to track who gets aid so everyone gets treated fairly. But do you trust it? A few decades ago, eye and palm scans were the stuff of James Bond films. Today, they are common at refugee camps and aid distribution sites. The Kenya Red Cross Society began using thumbprints and eye scans as part of its efforts to help people rebuild after devastating countrywide floods in 2018.
Our approach was to do the assessment together with the community and having them decide and prioritize who was to get what and how the data was going to be used. So with this understanding, the community understood that the biometric data that they were producing was actually a tool to further guarantee that those individuals receiving shelter kits at the end were those who they knew were actually in most need.
But some humanitarian data experts argue that universal standards are needed to ensure this kind of consent and participation happens across the board.
In the past 5 to 10 years, we've gone from 0 to 60 in terms of not having a biometric component to our work, to having biometrics and digital identity being at the center of what aid organizations do now.
In conflict zones, data protection is especially critical. The ICRC takes a cautious approach. Any biometric data is kept by the person being scanned, and it's never stored by the ICRC. Another innovation now embraced by humanitarian groups is the use of cash transfers through mobile phones or cash cards. These are a few reasons e-banking systems are now widely used to deliver aid.
There's a very positive side to providing cash for aid for people affected by armed conflicts and other situations of violence. It limits people's visibility and exposure. It doesn't require people to all gather in the same spot for a food distribution, for example, where they could be vulnerable.
The risk, though, is that electronic cash transfers contain metadata, information that helps money get where it needs to go. It's a bit like the address on a package. What's inside might be shielded, but the metadata around it reveals a lot.
At what time people withdraw cash? Where do they withdraw cash from? Where do they spend it? What do they spend it on? All this is very precious and valuable information which could be used to profile an individual and potentially indicate that that person may be more likely to be enemy to one of the parties in a conflict.
Understanding these risks is the first step in knowing what innovations to embrace and which ones to avoid. To learn more, see the other videos in our series.